Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, we got a great show for you today. Good Friday morning to you. Friday night, depending on when you listen to the show. The weekend is here, and yes, I am going fishing, but I'm not going to shortcut the show in any way, shape, or form, because I go fishing after the show. But we got a great show for you. We start out with a big Supreme Court ruling yesterday, kind of broke later after the show. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, rules President Trump's tax returns can be released. Well, kind of, sort of, and we'll explain what that means. And then Black Lives Matter in the news again today, because as promised by Comrade de Blasio, the mayor of New York, it's hard to believe he's actually the mayor of New York, they painted yesterday, and he participated in it, a Black Lives Matter mural right in front of Trump Towers in New York City. And he said he was going to do it, and he, son of a gun, he did it. And then this last story, hopefully we'll have time to get to it, is really messed up, man. Apparently, the U.S. Army, and they saying it's a mistake and everything else, but basically over the 4th of July weekend, there was an email sent out, and it went out to the command structure, so it went into potentially thousands of Army soldiers, and basically it gave a list of things that are white supremacist. And MAGA, the MAGA hat, the MAGA agenda was one of those, and we're going to cover that if we have a time, because it is a bizarre story to say the least. But the first story we're coming to is from the New York Times. Supreme Court rules Trump cannot block release of financial records. So basically, the Supreme Court ruled in a 7-2 decision. So a lot of the conservatives voted, and they voted that essentially that was two-part decision. One was that the district attorney in New York could actually subpoena financial records from Donald Trump, including tax returns, and that he could not prevent them from getting them carte blanche, because Donald Trump and the office of the presidency basically said that he was immune from that type of prosecution. So the Supreme Court ruled that he was not. Now, and we'll get into it more as the article unfolds here, but it does not necessarily mean that that this district attorney will get those records, and we'll explain that. And then a second part of it was more in Donald Trump's favor. It was that Congress doesn't have the right to just automatically see his financial records. They have to prove basically some type of need for them, not just, hey, I want to see them. But we'll get into the details. The Supreme Court on Thursday cleared the way for prosecutors in New York to see President Trump's financial records, a stunning defeat, according to the New York Times, for Mr. Trump, but a decision that probably means the records will be shielded from public scrutiny under grand jury secrecy rules until after the election, and perhaps indefinitely. Now, here's the big concern right off the bat. If they actually get these records, and I'm talking about the district attorney in New York, if they actually get these records, because first of all, the guy that's doing this is an enemy of Trump. There's no question about it. He's a Democratic operative. There's no secret to this whatsoever. And this is a sort of witch hunt. Is there any doubt in your mind that if they were to get these records, secrecy or not, they would somehow find their way to the New York Times? I mean, to me, they'll be leaked immediately, if not sooner, especially if it's close to the election. There's just no doubt in my mind about that. In a separate decision, the court ruled that Congress could not, at least for now, see many of the same records. The vote in both cases was 7-2. Let me make a slight adjustment here. There we go. 7-2. Chief Justice John Roberts, Jr. wrote both majority opinions. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that it went against the president, excuse me, in this case, because the president is not above the law. Now, he's not beneath the law either. Well, I'll explain what I mean by that in just a minute. The court's decision in favor of the New York prosecutors was a major statement on scope and limits of presidential power. See, that was really the big question. It's not supposed to be about Donald Trump. Now, we know anything that has to do with Donald Trump is always about Donald Trump. But if you go by the merits of this case, It is about the power of the presidency. And the presidency has been expanding right up until Donald Trump. They actually have been trying to shrink it for the first time in forever. That says something in and of itself. But it says the scope and limits of presidential power, one that will take its place with landmark rulings that required President Richard Nixon to turn over tapes in the Oval Office, conversations, and force Bill Clinton to provide evidence in a sexual harassment suit. So what they're saying is there's precedent, which is what the court really operates on. There's precedent for requiring a president that is under investigation to turn over certain records, especially to the judicial branch, so to speak, or the Department of Justice, which comes under the president too. So this is not that unusual. Now, the Congress ruling is different, and they did rule differently in that case. But presidents, as I say, are not above the law. They're not. But Democrats believe President Trump is beneath the law. And we saw that clearly in the whole impeachment process, where they literally, he wasn't able to face his accusers. They didn't even let his attorneys be there. President Trump was never able to defend himself in the initial investigation. All of these things. So what the House of Representatives, they didn't even charge the guy with a real crime. So the president under the House was beneath the law. So I'm not even worried about him being above the law, because clearly he's not. But beneath the law, he's definitely not that either. But Nancy Pelosi and her bunch seem to think he is. In the case concerning the prosecutor's subpoena, Chief Justice Roberts wrote that no citizen, not even the president, is categorically above the common duty to produce evidence. And it's hard to argue that. When called upon in criminal proceeding, he added that Mr. Trump may still raise, and this is a very key point that the Justice Roberts is making. I'm no fan of his, but I think he's probably right in this case, that Mr. Trump may still raise objections to the scope and relevance of the subpoena. So I don't personally have a major issue with this part of the ruling. My big concern, as I say, is the reason for doing this, not the Supreme Court's reason, but the district attorney in New York is clearly on a witch hunt, and there's no question if they get these records before the election, they will release them covertly, if nothing else. I mean, if you don't believe that, then you hadn't been paying much attention. But that's what I'm really worried about. But the fact that there's precedent for a president having to release these, and oh, by the way, I have no problem with President Trump fighting this as well. Everything worked potentially as it should. Now, as Justice Roberts said, President Trump is still going to have his day in court if he chooses to fight this, and I'm assuming that he will. It looks like it's going to be drawn out past the election, which I think will be very good as long as that district attorney doesn't get the records before, because I'm repeating myself, but if I say it bears repeating, there is no doubt in my mind that if that district attorney gets them in New York, they will be leaked, because they will do anything to stop President Trump. In the case concerning congressional subpoenas, Chief Justice Roberts wrote the lower courts had not adequately considered the separation of powers concerns raised in the case. He was joined by the same justices who voted with him in the New York case. Basically, what Roberts is saying in this particular case is, hey, I don't want to be the referee. The Supreme Court is not the referee. There are ample ways for you to fight this thing out amongst the legislative branch and the executive branch, and he threw it back to the lower courts. Part of the problem is, if you remember, during the impeachment process and all the different various House investigative panels and committees, that they did not issue a bunch of subpoenas. They did not. And well, they did it. Let me back up. They did issue subpoenas, but the president challenged them, and they did not want to take it to court. This is a very key point. I'm sorry I botched it there at the beginning. The House subpoenaed multiple people in the administration, and President Trump said no, and the House had the opportunity to take him to court, and they would not do it. Do you remember why? Well, I think there's two reasons. One, they probably would have lost, but the main reason is they had to get Trump impeached by Christmas time, basically, and they didn't want it to be drawn out and potentially take it through into the election year and beyond. So the House chose not to fight President Trump in court and basically sued, saying they're due the records whether they win a court case or not. So the president, in effect, won this part of it. Now, does that ultimately mean he may not have to give them the records down the line? It depends if they take him to court, which now that the impeachment process is over, and I fully expect if President Trump wins, or hopefully when he wins, they're going to keep fighting him. Hopefully the best remedy, if you're tired of this nonsense, is to elect Donald Trump and make sure that the Democrats lose the House and the Republicans keep the Senate. Then all this stuff basically goes away. But it says here, in the case concerning congressional subpoenas, Chief Justice Roberts wrote the lower courts had not adequately considered the separation of powers. It's all politics. That's all it is. The two dissenting justices in both of these decisions was Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito Jr. They dissented in both cases. Now, I love how the New York Times phrases this next point. And they do this all the time. They said Mr. Trump immediately attacked the outcome on Twitter. So the president, if he simply says, hey, I don't agree with this, it's an attack. No matter what president does, and I'm not saying that President Trump doesn't occasionally attack, but he could say the sky is blue, and that's an attack. So everything is an attack. But President Trump said this is all a political prosecution, and it is. Even though, like I said earlier, I don't have a big problem with the first part of this, it's still a political prosecution. Not the Supreme Court per se, but the challenges of this, both the House of Representatives and that district attorney in New York, it's all political. It's all a witch hunt designed to harm President Trump. Now, I got a big issue with that, but the legal aspect of it, not so much. But President Trump went on to tweet, he said, courts in the past have given broad deference, but not to me. And he's right about that. He's right that he has been treated differently at every level of government. President Trump has been treated differently than any other president. If you want the best example of that, just happened recently. Look at when President Trump went to Mount Rushmore, gave that spectacular speech in front of the most majestic place in the country, really, and the fireworks and the planes flying. It was an incredible sight. But it was called a divisive speech by the mainstream media, even though it was not. You go back and listen to it. I'm talking about the Mount Rushmore speech. The 4th of July speech was a little bit more meaty in the sense that it was probably, when he started talking about the Confederacy and things like that, I can understand why some people had an issue with that. But the 4th of July speech was, the tone was perfect. The speech was perfect. It was an excellent speech, but it wasn't treated that way. And if you remember, and I'm going to show you these, basically are headlines, back when Obama, and of course Bernie Sanders just went there a couple of years ago, but Obama went to Mount Rushmore, and CNN and everything else said it was great, it was so majestic and everything else. And of course, when President Trump went there, it was basically the Antichrist was speaking at Mount Rushmore. So it's just unbelievable. He is treated completely different than any other president. There is no doubt about that. And he is different than any other president, but I think in a good way. Jay Sekulow, a lawyer for Mr. Trump, portrayed the decision as at least a temporary victory. Mainly, he's talking about the House not getting them and the fact that they probably, even this district attorney, is unlikely to get these things until after the election. He said, we're pleased, this is Trump's attorney, President Trump's attorney, we're pleased that the decision issued today, the Supreme Court has temporarily blocked both Congress and New York prosecutors from obtaining the president's tax records. He said in a statement, we will now proceed to raise additional constitutional and legal issues in the lower courts. So Sekulow, he's a shrewd dude. He realizes that they've got to keep this tied up because he knows that if it goes to that district attorney in New York, like I'm worried about, they will leak it. But the president is going to have his day in court. At the end of the day, that may seem unfair, but it is our system, and we have to try to believe in the system. Now, the system has been rigged. The FBI, we know that. I mean, the whole Mural investigation was a rigging and abuse of the system. We have to hope, but I'm still skeptical that any of these rats are going to actually do the perp walk. I'm with you. I want to see them do the perp walk. But rats don't like to prosecute rats. So I'm still skeptical because the swamp is very deep and it's very vengeful. And one thing about it, Donald Trump, unlike any president before him, is actually attempting to drain the swamp. And this is what it looks like. If you're tired of all the crap that is happening with President Trump, and some of you out there might be worn out. I've heard people say, man, I'm just tired. This is what the Democrats are relying on, by the way. And the only way Joe Biden can really win is if people just get tired of the constant pounding in the media and they just want things to return to normal. If they return to normal, the Constitution is through. So we're in the fight of our lives. And the reason is because President Trump is draining the swamp. And when you drain a swamp, you find all kind of dead bodies and everything else under it. It stinks to high heaven. The rats are everywhere. The snakes are coming out. And that's what you're seeing during these 3.5 years of President Trump's administration. It is the result of the swamp fighting back. That's what it looks like. It ain't a pretty sight. It never is. House Democrats and New York prosecutors said the records may shed light on Mr. Trump's foreign entanglements, the Moscow Project and everything else. Possible conflicts of interest, whether he has paid his taxes and whether his hush money payments violated campaign finance laws. That's absolutely a lie. They know it's a lie. They're talking about the money paid out to like Stormy Daniels, who has come out now, but they don't mention this in this article, and said that she never had an affair with Trump and all that was not true. But they're talking about the payments. The payments made are not campaign finance violations. Charges aren't reality. The guy, what's his name, Cohen, who just went back to prison, by the way, because I guess he violated some aspects of his probation or parole. The charges of campaign finance violations were not what put him in prison. What put him in prison was tax evasion, influence peddling, and everything else. So the campaign finance thing was bogus from the start. It's bogus now, but they're going to take every opportunity to bring them up. So that hush money stuff is not a criminal offense in any way, shape, or form. And as far as his taxes are concerned, it's pretty, I'd be surprised. And I've been saying, I haven't really talked about his tax returns in a while. So some of you may not have heard me say this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I'd be very, very surprised if any significant information comes out from tax returns for several reasons. One, that is not the nature of tax returns. Keep in mind, the IRS has had his tax returns all of this time. And there's two big things there. One, if there was a crime, they could have and should have and would have already prosecuted him for the time before he was the president, because they're not just going to give him a pass on that. And here's the big thing that lets me know that there is no there. Remember who was president during the years that they were trying to seek his tax returns? It was none other than Barack Obama. And we know for a fact that Barack Obama weaponized the IRS. Remember that Lerner gal that took the Fifth Amendment that was head of the IRS at the time when they targeted like Tea Party groups? So they proved under Obama that they would use the IRS as a weapon. Now go back to the birther issue. Donald Trump is credited or blamed for the birther issue. Now, in fairness, he did bring it up quite often. I think he overplayed it myself, but that's just my opinion. But the reality is, and no one ever talks about this, the first person to actually bring up the birther issue was none other than Hillary Rodham Clinton. She's the one that brought it up when she was running against Obama the first time. Did Trump play it out in a bigly way, as he say? Yeah. But I say that to say this. Don't you think that if the IRS had anything that would have been dirty on President Trump, then Citizen Trump, before he ever became candidate Trump, don't you know that Obama would have put that out there? That they would have leaked it somehow? It would have magically appeared at Politico or the New York Times? Is there any doubt in your mind that they would have done that? So I'm not worried about President Trump's tax returns. And at this point, it's kind of like the mask thing. President Trump never said you can't wear a mask, you shouldn't wear a mask, don't wear a mask. But the media has made it all about whether or not he's going to wear a mask, to the point they've politicized it so much that he can't wear a mask, or they're going to say, oh, he's weak and he he kneeled or he healed like a dog. That's what they're going to say. Same thing with the tax returns. They have politicized this so much that Donald Trump pretty much has to fight them, because nothing short of total exoneration from this, and that doesn't even help him either, because he's been exonerated and they're still after him. So, it's all ridiculous nonsense. Anyway, we're going to move along. We're going to move along to this Black Lives Matter issue. In case you haven't seen it, and we're going to show you a picture here in just a minute. Yesterday in New York, about noontime yesterday, they painted the Black Lives mural in front of Trump Towers, right there on Madison Avenue in front of Trump Towers. I've been right there many, many times. And they painted it. Man, is that petty. So here's the headline. Black Lives Matter mural painted outside. This is a CNN article. What a great one to use for this petty thing. Bill de Blasio, Comrade de Blasio, the guy that is shamefully still the mayor of New York City, paints Black Lives Matter street mural outside Trump Tower. Now, how petty is this? It is unbelievable. City employees began painting a stretch of Fifth Avenue just in front of the Trump Organization headquarters on Thursday morning. Mayor Bill de Blasio authorized the Start Yellow mural earlier this month. So, I've been telling you, and I'm going to say it, Black Lives Matter is a communist Marxist organization. And now there's research coming out that they're actually supported by a convicted terrorist. That came out, like I think on Hannity or Tucker last night, a convicted terrorist. So Black Lives Matter is not only a communist Marxist organization, but they're kind of a splinter group and their chief fundraiser is this woman. Her name escapes me at the moment, but she's a convicted terrorist. Check it out. Look it up. I'm serious about this. So that brings me to a question. Could they just name it like maybe Al-Qaeda Lives Matter? Can we put that in front of like the Freedom Tower, in front of the 9/11 memorial? I mean, if Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization, can be put out, why not Al-Qaeda Lives Matter in front of 9/11? Because some Al-Qaeda members died there, right? I'm just saying, if that's the way you're going, why not go whole hog? The New York mayor rolled up his sleeves and painted a bit of the mural himself. Bless his little old heart. He got out there and worked. Apparently, that's about the first work he's done as mayor, because he's notorious for sleeping late, showing up late, and doing nothing. I mean, they've been talking about that. Even Democrats talk about that. But it said he painted a bit of the mural, talking about Comrade de Blasio, too, clad in a mask and flanked by civil rights leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton. That sounds about right. Right? I mean, think about it. Al Sharpton is the perfect guy to be there yesterday, because income taxes and paying your income tax and seeing your income tax files, your tax returns, is the big news of yesterday, right? So I don't blame Bill de Blasio. Why not have one of the highest profile tax cheats out there standing beside you in Al Sharpton? I would be more interested in Al Sharpton paying his taxes than anything that comes out of Donald Trump's tax returns. I'm not even worried about it. But I think we already showed the picture of them standing side by side. Check out this comments from de Blasio. They're just unbelievable. De Blasio said, President Trump said we would be denigrating the luxury of Fifth Avenue. And that's true. It's one of the most, of course, they burn it and looting it. I guess that's all right. So Black Lives Matter owns it maybe now. Maybe that's why. But de Blasio said, we would be denigrating the luxury of Fifth Avenue. He goes on to say, let me tell you, we're not denigrating anything. We are liberating Fifth Avenue. Wow, liberating Fifth Avenue. We are uplifting Fifth Avenue. Now, let me ask you this. I want to ask New Yorkers this, or people who are familiar with New York really well. But New Yorkers specifically, especially New York City people. So I got quite a few fans there. One of them, Chyla, listens to me every day. I haven't really given her a shout out. Good morning, Chyla. Hope things are going well for you. But let me ask you, New Yorkers, when you think of Bill de Blasio, well, even if you like the guy, when the name Bill de Blasio comes up, what is the first word that pops in your head? Chime in on Facebook and tell me. I'd be willing to bet money that it's not uplifting. I've never heard that Bill de Blasio, now he may need to be lifted up, but he's a pretty tall drink of water there, so to speak. But when I hear Bill de Blasio, I don't even think uplifting even comes into the vocabulary, so to speak, of that. I just don't see it. But tell me, I could be wrong, but I bet it's not uplifting. But he added, he's not done, old Bill, Comrade Bill. He said, who built this city? Who built this nation and never got the acknowledgement, the recognition? I guess he's talking about black people. And yes, black people built a lot of things. But New York, man, was built by immigrants. I mean, Italians probably have the biggest stake in New York. Of course, the Dutch that started it there. And of course, the Indians were, rooked or crooked for some beads. There's more to that story, by the way. That's not quite true. But there's been a presence on Manhattan Island for a long, long time. So a lot of people built it. Heck, I helped build it. I worked on multiple skyscrapers that are all still standing as far as I know. And some of the older ones, like I was in the Empire State Building. I've been in the Gumby Building, Citicorp. I was down at Goldman Sachs. I mean, I could name you a dozen different buildings. My last job was actually over in Brooklyn, that kind of building right there by the bridge. It has kind of a pyramid on top of it. The name escapes me right now. But I helped build multiple buildings in New York. Do I get me a street? We're going to have JMT Boulevard or whatever. Hey, if you want to name it, I'm feeling magnanimous today. Let's name it Billy Bob Avenue. My psychic sidekick here, Billy Bob Bass, man. He's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1. And mine is at John Martin Talks. He keeps me straight. So I think if we're going to honor anybody for my work in New York City, let's pick out one and name it Billy Bob Avenue. I really don't care what part of the city, but I've done more to build that city, I guess, guarantee you, than Black Lives Matter. Because Black Lives Matter, the organization, I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about the organization. They're not in the building business. They're into burning down and tearing down. Heck, they tore down Frederick Douglass statue. Didn't want to get that upside down. I'm all excited about the possibility of Billy Bob Avenue, man. But de Blasio went on to say, check this out. He said, this guy knows no shame. Listen to this. He said, when we say Black Lives Matter, there is no more American statement. I've been telling you, and I'm going to keep telling you, one thing that I guess I love about these progressives, or maybe respect, you don't have to guess where they're coming from. They will tell you, if you simply listen to what they are saying, like Bernie Sanders yesterday. If you hadn't seen our podcast, go back and check it out. I'll tell you how to do it in just a second. Bernie Sanders said yesterday, and we had it on our show, that Joe Biden, if elected, will be the most progressive president ever, basically, is what he talked about yesterday. So I take him at his word for that. By the way, if you want to watch our shows, the best way to do it is to go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. You can also check out our YouTube channel, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. Check us out on America's Voice News. We're not only there in the mornings on Facebook, howdy, how you guys doing, but we're rebroadcast late night on their network. You can download a free app, the Android, the iPhone, Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. We're on Dish Network, channel 219, and Pluto Network. So that's all kind of ways to see our show. But, Black Lives Matter, he says there's no more American statement. So take de Blasio at his word. These progressives, which he claims to be the lead one, they believe in fundamentally changing America. So burning down, loot. I guess that helps them with the Green New Deal. You don't have to knock them down, just burn them down. But Black Lives Matter, the organization that is a Marxist organization, that a terrorist is their number one fundraiser, that organization there is no more American statement than that. He said there's no more patriotic statement, so he's doubling down. They always carry it to extreme, progressive, because there's no America without Black America. Well, who in the world is saying that? See, there's a difference. Black Lives Matter, if you watch a lot of the protests, a lot of them out there aren't black. There's no one disputing that Black Americans paid a heck of a price and are an integral part in actually building America. Who disputes that? Especially the East Coast and the South. Who disputes that? No one. I've heard anyone say, that's a lie. Never. Of course, President Obama famously talked about how the great historic contributions that Muslims have had to the founding of this nation, which is a lie. And I'm not knocking Muslims, but they just weren't part of our early history. I'm not saying there were none here, but nothing like Black Americans for sure. And of course, Native Americans built this country before we ever got here. So, I mean, this idea of singling out one group of people is just nonsense. He says, but he's not to be outdone. De Blasio went on to say, we are acknowledging the truth in ourselves and in America by saying Black Lives Matter. We are righting a wrong. So let me get this straight. Is he actually saying that by painting this mural, Black Lives Matter, in front of Trump Tower on Madison Avenue, that is righting a wrong of what? Racism? Injustice? Slavery? Really? I mean, is that what he's saying? Because it sounds like it. Let me look at this again. Let me read this one more time because I want to make sure I'm right about this. He said, by saying Black Lives Matter, we are righting a wrong. So let me ask Black America this. I hate to keep saying, are you buying this? Are you really buying or selling this? Are you buying that that by simply painting Black Lives Matter, chanting Black Lives Matter, holding a sign up, that somehow that is righting a wrong? I mean, that's very common with progressive leftists here that are running the Democratic Party. They virtue signal all the time. They don't care about the cost in human lives or the cost actually. It's all about virtue signal. I could give you example after example of that. Right here in our community, some of you that are from this area will know what I'm talking about, but our city commission put the Gainesville City Commission, I should say, put their city in $1 billion worth of debt simply to virtue signal to the world that they were leaders in green. They were the Green New Deal before the Green New Deal. You could examine what happened with here in the city of Gainesville. Look up the biomass plant in Gainesville, study it. You'll see they virtue signaled that to the world. The mayor at that time actually went over, I think, to Copenhagen to pound on her chest about it. And the thing is a complete, if I hope I'm saying this right, boondoggle. It has cost Gainesville literally went from having a utility that was the envy of the area to one that is like potentially going bankrupt, all to basically say, look at me, which is all this thing is, painting this. So he's saying that you can right the wrongs of what's happening to Black Americans, and there's a lot of wrongs there, there's no question about it, by doing stuff like painting Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower. I mean, to me, if anything, it inflames people. It's going to cause more divisiveness. It'll probably be the center of demonstrations and things like that. You could make a case that he's threatening the president if the president goes back there. So to me, I just don't see it. So I ask Black America, are you buying this? If you care about race relations, does this actually solve anything? I can show you, let me show you, this is what de Blasio, and I got to warn you ahead, I'm getting ready to show you a video, just happened a couple of days ago in New York City, in the Bronx, and de Blasio is not focused, I don't think he's even mentioned this, in fairness, I don't think he has, he may have, but talk about Black Lives Matter, check out this horrendous crime. I got to tell you, it's a bit graphic, but it happened just a few days ago right in New York City. Check it out. Wow. Can you look at that? I mean, they kind of cut away from it. What it is there, you have a Black man walking with his, it turns out to be his daughter, holding her hand. She looks like she's probably about 7 or 8 years old, if that, walking down a public street in broad daylight. That is like a surveillance camera. That's why there's no sound on it. And I don't know the reason, if it was random or some gang related. I really don't know. But there's a person, and it looks like a Black man, in a car, pulls up and point blank shoots that guy in the back. Now, to me, if you can shoot a man holding his daughter's hand in broad daylight, you don't care about any lives at all, period. None of life. You certainly don't care about Black Lives Matter. To me, does that mural, and this may be unfair, but I'm just going to say it, does painting that mural bring that guy back? Does it make any difference? Maybe if there were a police presence in that area, could have stopped it. But there were police officers down there where they were painting the Black Lives Matter to keep people from like painting over it like the woman did out there in California that's now charged with a hate crime. So to paint something like Black Lives Matter on the street is not a hate crime, but to paint over it is. And that shows you how bizarre we are. Man, prayers go out to the family of that man. He was killed. Can you imagine? You talk about trauma to a child? Oh my God. But I'm just telling it like it is, ladies and gentlemen. If some people may not like it, but if you're looking for political correctness, you are in the wrong place. I am always going to tell it like it is. And one thing I feel comfortable about it is what George Orwell said. And I show this from time to time, and we'll put up the meme here right now. I'll probably botch it a little bit. But Orwell basically said, when a society no longer values truth, think about that. Right now, we don't value truth. Then when they don't value truth, they will hate the people who speak it. For instance, like we've shown several times, we won't play the video right now, but when you had that couple in St. Louis defending their home, exercising their God-given Second Amendment rights protected by the U.S. Constitution, out there defending their home, they are the criminals. They are the criminals. When a woman out in California decides that the Black Lives Matter graffiti is too much to handle, so she paints over it, she's the one putting the hate out there. When a black man, and we've shown these videos, when a black man actually goes and starts tearing down stuff that says Black Lives Matter on a fence across from his house so he can see the park, and is attacked by a white dude that actually calls him everything but a child of God, calls him racist for tearing, and he's a black man. We're living in bizarro world, man, progressive world, and it's only going to get worse. Take Bernie Sanders at his word. If Joe Biden is elected, he will be the most progressive president we've ever had. All of this is connected, ladies and gentlemen. So people may hate on me. I'm getting a lot of hate mail, so to speak, and trolling on the Facebook sites. I take that as a badge of honor because I go back to what Orwell said. When society no longer values the truth, they hate those that speak it. And, hey, if that's the case, I'm in pretty good company. Let me check out my time. I got a pretty good bit of time left. Got to get into this last story here. It is from Breitbart, and it is a sad and scary story. U.S. Army message, "Make America Great Again, Columbus Day," are signs of white supremacy. So MAGA, simply wearing a hat that says MAGA or saying "Make America Great Again," I'm assuming America first, happy Columbus Day to somebody, is racist, according to members of the U.S. military. Now, I'm not saying all U.S. military believes this, but it was put out. And I don't think it's until you ever notice that there's nothing accidental that goes out that slams Democrats. It's always something slamming Donald Trump. Oh, it was a mistake. We didn't mean for it to happen. But they never make a mistake talking about Obama, do they? They never made a mistake talking about Joe Biden. It's always something that trashes Donald Trump or trashes people that follow Donald Trump. Oh, it was just a mistake. We didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. But it says here, so let's get into this article. It just breaks my heart to even talk about this. And as I say, I'm not trying to label all members of the military this, but I don't believe for a second this was a mistake. A U.S. Army email sent after the 4th of July to its military and civilian members included a graphic which claimed saying the phrase "Make America Great Again" is evidence of white supremacy. Wow, just wow. I mean, one thing about Donald Trump, and this goes to what I was saying earlier about draining the swamp, Donald Trump is not the purveyor of hate that they try to make him out to be. The Mexican president said yesterday, and we talked about it on our show, that Donald Trump, actually, I guess it was the day before, but Donald Trump was great, and he was great friends, and he was a great friend to the Mexican people, and he worked for him and worked with him and looked forward to working with him on more stuff. He was a bromance, so to speak, but that guy is probably racist right now. Donald Trump is not a racist person, but he has exposed racism. He's exposed the hatred. He's exposed the rot that's in our country. That's what he's done. Look at this meme here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The MAGA hat, it just triggers you to be what you already are. Donald Trump has exposed the rottenness that has been infesting our country for quite some time. It's smelly. We don't like it. We wish we didn't see it. You know, there's some things you can't help but see. But Donald Trump didn't create the violence in our streets. The violence in our street has been escalating all along. Donald Trump's not the one that is trying to defund the police, that is painting Black Lives Matter on the street, that actually says that the organization Black Lives Matter is patriotic. It's not Donald Trump that's doing that. It's the mainstream media and the progressive left. The graphic, getting back to this email that was sent out, the graphic listed other behaviors it deemed evidence of white supremacy. It's pretty long. I'll show you the graph in just a moment. I can't go through all of them, so you'll have to freeze it later on and go back and look at it. Evidence of white supremacy, including celebration of Columbus Day, the denial of white privilege. So if you tell me I have white privilege and I say, what? I'm racist. I'm racist. I can tell you right now, I am privileged to be a person, a citizen of the United States of America. And I am not saying that white people in general hadn't fared as a group better than black people. I haven't said that. I'm not, I mean, that would be ludicrous to say that. But all people have been slaves to a certain extent. But if you look at now, what is happening in America now, the beauty of America at this moment, and yes, there is racism still exists. It's not systematic and it's not institutionalized. There is a difference. We have done away with institutional racism. Does that mean people aren't racist? Of course not. You can't legislate what's in a man's heart. You can paint a mural a day on every street. You can paint Black Lives Matter on every street. It doesn't stop that dude from shooting that guy in the back holding his kid. It doesn't stop the murders that are happening in Chicago, that they're literally killing babies. You actually have black people beginning to speak up about it and what's happening to them. They're being ridiculed. Go to that guy, Terry Crews, you know, the guy from the Muscle Man guy. You see him on multiple movies. I think he was in those Expendable movies. He just debated Don Lemon about this on CNN, and Don the Lemon chastised him for even mentioning black on black crime. Two black people, the man mentions black on black crime, and basically Don Lemon takes him to, almost called him a racist. And remember when they were laughing about Kanye West? You know, he's running for president. We haven't talked about that. I'm not sure it's serious. But remember when Don Lemon and two other black people were laughing about Kanye West and calling him a house whatever? I mean, remember that? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So all of that, none of that is going to solve anything. It's just crazy. But the graphic, so Donald Trump has exposed all of this, man. But it says the graphic listed other behaviors talking about America, celebration, denial of white privilege. Let me just tell you about white privilege. I don't have any, and I'm not in denial of it, and I'm not apologizing for squat. Talking about American exceptionalism. Think about that. So if you say America is exceptional, that is now racist. It's crazy. Talking about Americans, saying there is only one race, the human race. Imagine that. So you say all lives matter, you get fired, basically. If you say that we're actually only one race, the human race, I mean, good Lord, man. That now is racist? To me, it's just crazy. But I'm glad to know where I stand because I believe in American. I don't have white privilege. I'm not apologizing it. I don't know if I've ever said Happy Columbus Day. I probably have. But talking about American exceptionalism, heck, everything around me shows how exceptional America. Perfect? No. Perfect? No. Let me make that clear. America's not perfect. Never has been. You know why? Because it's filled with people who are imperfect. Human beings are imperfect. We're not capable of perfection. My dad used to say that you know, there was only one perfect human being, and we crucified him. So that tells you what perfection is. So we're not perfect. So man created the Constitution. I believe it was divinely inspired, but perfect, no. But there is only one race, the human race. We all bleed the same blood, basically, right? But I'm glad to know where I stand. I guess I'm a racist. I'm like Meathead said, you know, Rob Reiner, that we'll see how many racists there are in the country come election day. Well, put me down. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let the big secret out right now. I plan to vote for Donald J. Trump come election day. I just do. But you know, I guess that makes me a racist. Now, my wife would probably find that a bit surprising, but it wouldn't be the first time that's happened. You know, my wife is mixed race, and I got attacked at the University of Florida by some protesters. I was just standing there. I didn't even have a Trump hat on. I was guilty of being an old white dude in the wrong place. And they basically, you're a racist, you're a racist. And I told a young lady, I said, you know, I'm married to a black woman. Well, then she's a racist. I'm like, okay, so much for that. But of course, we learned yesterday, as I said, that President Obrador of Mexico, he's a racist because he likes Donald Trump. And if he likes Donald Trump and he don't apologize for it, he got to be a racist. Well, we're almost out of time. Let me just keep going a little bit on this. The email invited all soldiers and Department of Army civilian personnel to attend the U.S. Army Operation of Inclusion seminars on July 8th and 9th at Redstone Arsenal. Operation Inclusion. So this is what we have now. And probably some people are going to take offense to this, but I thought the military was better at like killing people and letting God sort them out. And don't misunderstand me. I have the utmost respect for our U.S. military. But if we're worried about inclusion, it says here, the message, we'll conclude with this. The message named the U.S. Army Equity and Inclusion Agency and Assistant Secretary of the Army Manpower and Reserves as authors. So Army PC, I guess, political correctness. Army PC rhymes with something else. I'll let you go on that. But it's Progresso world, man. Think about it. It's taken over the military. If we become a country that is not worth defending, then we're done. If we become a country that's not worth police officers serving, then we're done. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, and I say this with no glee. We are in the fight of our lives. We either are going to have a shot at being free, rugged individuals under a U.S. Constitution, or we're going to live in Progresso world. That's just the way it is. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, and share it with those. Oh, before I forget, there is a way you can support the show. There's a little link in the Facebook description that'll take you to a website, Big BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. It's all about the Second Amendment. I'll keep explaining that later. Check it out. You'll see how you can help me. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this nation. Above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours. Have a blessed day.